Hi, I'm Clésia Mendes, and welcome to the second season of Womanhood from the Inside Out. In this interview series, we'll be discovering and uncovering the nature of womanhood from the inside out. Why is it important? When does it show? How can we identify it? And what are the implications of womanhood from the inside out? And today's guest is my dear friend, Dr. Rita Shuford. Dr. Shuford is a licensed psychologist and certified practitioner of the three principles. She met Sydney Banks in 1977, and for 40 years, Dr. Shuford has been a student and practitioner of the three principles mind, thought, and consciousness. She has worked in a variety of settings, including schools, hospitals, and community and private mental health clinics. Dr. Shuford has been director of clinical services in three clinics in Florida and Hawaii. She has mentored, provided training, and supervised many colleagues and fellow students of the Three Principles. And she is the president and founder of the Three Principles Hawaii. And Dr. Shuford is also the founder of the Three Principles Cadre in Hawaii, a consortium of 3P practitioners. Currently, Dr. Shuford offers coaching, mentoring, training, and Three Principles retreats locally and globally. And one of her passions is singing, which she enjoys as a member of the acclaimed Windward Choral Society. And she is also currently past president of the Windward Choral Society Board of Directors. Welcome, Dr. Rita Shuford.
Aloha. You can call me Rita.
Thank you, Rita. So
Yeah,
let me ask you, how did you first came across the inside-out understanding of life?
that's an interesting question because I think it started very early in my life, that I had a sense that there was some kind of deeper truth going on in life. I was always kind of listening, observing, and curious about it, how things work, how people tick, including myself. And so that led me really into the field of mental health, and I was always interested in helping others. Always interested in seeing, because I could see within people, in people's eyes, you could call it their soul, their spirit. I could always see a potential within people. And again, I don't know why that's true. I just did. Came into life seeing it that way. And so I looked into psychology, had a background of a more, you might say, spiritual background. Just, I was born into a family that was very, they were beyond, we had a religion, but it was more than that. It's like a deep faith that there's something bigger going on in life, and that it's there to take care of us somehow. And that was evidenced at different times in my life, as my mom had a very strong intuitive sense, and I think that's also something I felt very intuitive about things, and relied on that in myself without exactly knowing I was, but I was, right? And she would get a sense that, if we were in need of money, we were, lived on a farm, didn't have a lot of money, moved into town, still didn't have a lot of money. And she'd get a sense that what we needed would show up somehow. And sometimes it was literally someone knocking at our door who had something for us. So I grew up with that kind of faith, if you want to call it that, or trust. Okay. And, we called it God. We called it, that something greater than us. So as I began to, go into schools and start to say, okay, what am I going to do here? Go to college. And I decided to, first of all, major in music, which I loved. I was, like you said, I was a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And music to me is kind of like the language of the soul. You know, we speak through music and art, you know, in ways that go beyond the intellect. So, but then it turned out that being a music teacher, although I loved the kids and I loved what I did, it was a little too restrictive somehow. And I really always ended up seeing how to help in more of a counseling kind of way. And my students would say that, you know, that I was kind of like their counselor or their mentor, even though I was their music teacher. And so that led me to pursue a master's degree and then eventually a doctorate. And after I got my master's degree, I I ran a juvenile delinquency prevention program. Okay. And that was based in a school system, Eugene, Oregon, and worked with juvenile. There were 3 people on our team. We had a team. I was the school person, and then we had a juvenile detective, and we had a juvenile court counselor. And the 3 of us went into the community, into the schools. We did all kinds of things. And I ran that program for about 5 years. Seems like it was shorter than that, but I think it was going on 5 years. So, and during that time had the opportunity, you know, I was always interested in understanding, you know, how do people tick? How does this work? How can I draw out that potential, that what I could see in people's eyes? And so I studied all kinds of approaches that were available, had that opportunity to attend many retreats and workshops and everything, because we were looking at primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. So all levels of how can you help people before they even get into trouble, when they're starting to get into trouble, and then they're really into trouble. How do you help them get out of that, right? And somewhere toward the end of that 5 years, I decided to take a leave of absence. And at that point, there were 2 goals I had in mind. And one was to decide if I wanted to get my doctorate, which seemed, you know, for me, I wasn't a big reader. I wasn't a big researcher. Hadn't written any big research papers up to that point. And so it you know, I wasn't so sure about it, and whether I could hack it, do what was required, right? And but I kind of the last minute decided I would go ahead. But my main interest really was finding the missing link in psychology, because I had come to some intuitive sense of that all of these different approaches, as helpful as they seemed to be initially, somehow just became a theory or a bunch of words, because it had to help me.
Mm-hmm.
I was very common sense, still am, very common sense. So if it helped me, you know, feel better, you know, be able to move forward better in my life, I would listen, I would and apply it, you know, see how it worked for me. But time and time again, I came to the same point that this wasn't quite it. There was something missing here. Mm. And so I began to me, it was kind of like all these theories were part of this big pie, okay? Pieces of a pie. And we were growing more and more theories, right? Mm-hmm. So the pie was getting bigger and bigger, and the slices, you might say, smaller and smaller. And but in my way of thinking, in my kind of common sense, systematic way, in some ways, I saw that the core of that pie this was the human being. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here you have the human being, and you've got all these ways of looking at human beings that were the best that people had, right? And but it was becoming more and more complicated with more and more theories, and less, and the results of people, working from these different theories, myself included, okay, were limited, mixed, okay, and so again, that deeper wisdom in us, that intuition, began to just say to me, there's a missing link here. There have to be, and then sometimes I would call it their common denominators in psychology that would simplify and go more directly to how, again, for me, it was like, I see this potential in people's eyes. How do I just directly see how to draw it out or pull it out, so to speak? And at that point, it was, in some ways, it seemed like, and I experienced it too, I didn't like the pain and suffering that some of the approaches seemed to be saying. I had to get out my anger, I had to beat on pillows, I had to, and again, very innocent. When I say all of this, I really see humanity and human beings, whatever role they have in life, as very innocently doing the best they see to do, given where they're coming from within themselves at any point in time. Okay. So the field of psychology, as I began to sense and come to, was missing something very simple and it had to be there. I just kind of knew it had to be there. And I didn't really know how I was going to discover it, but I had no doubt that I would, that at some point I would come across, something would occur to me. And so I really kind of just stayed with that in myself, and spent a lot of time just hanging out in my apartment, because the things that any of us and people listening in will have that knowing too, I think, is sometimes you just know what's not the way you're going to go and isn't the way for you to go. And you may not know what way to go, but you're resting within somehow. My friend Elsie calls it residing in wisdom. You're resting within. Okay. The best we see at the time. So I'm mostly just kind of, my eyes and ears are open. I do different things. I sign up for some classes to see if I want to get my doctorate. I still haven't decided if I'm going to go for my doctorate. So anyhow, I just kept following that sense that there wasn't a technique. I'd looked into a lot of techniques. I wasn't really a technique-y kind of person, but I knew it wasn't a technique. I knew it wasn't a practice, and I don't mean to put any judgment on practices. I just knew it wasn't something that I had seen or come across to that point, right? And so I kind of just was looking for the missing link or the common denominators in psychology. And my good friend, Roger Mills, who I worked with in Eugene on different programs, he told me about this man named Sidney Banks, that he was leaving town, okay, and that he had used some of Sidney Banks' tapes in classes at the University of Oregon. And we met just as I was taking my leave of absence and he was leaving town. And so I just kind of, it didn't mean anything to me at that time, to tell you the truth. It was just like, oh, that's nice. Okay. But somewhere, again, when you see kind of how we get taken care of, I never forgot it, but it wasn't on my mind either. All right. That I knew of. So 9 months go by and I have to decide, I finally decide to apply to get my doctorate. And I had good friends in the community, and my master's level advisor. Anyway, I got into the doctoral program. And but I had told them my goal was to find the common denominators in psychology, which they all kind of rolled their eyes about, right? And but that was I just knew there was something true in that. There was something that we were missing, and that if we could see it, it would simplify everything, right? And help draw out that potential somehow, tap into it somehow. So anyhow, I did get accepted, and again, I'm telling the story, the longer version of the story, because to me, this is that inside out truth about what's going on from the moment we come into life until we leave this physical life. Okay. We're living from the inside out, whether we know it or not. And I would call it humanhood. We could call it manhood. We could call it womanhood, but it's humanhood, so to speak. Soulhood, or whatever we want to call it. Right? So a couple of weeks after I was accepted into the doctoral program, which was a very difficult decision for me to make. Remember, I wasn't sure I could hack it. Right, write a dissertation. That seemed like, going to classes wasn't an issue. I loved learning, but writing a dissertation seemed a little out of the box for me. And my friends will testify that for a while it was a little out of the box for me. But anyhow, so a couple weeks after I had gotten into the program, and out of the blue, okay, what comes to my mind is the tapes at the university bookstore that Dr. Roger Mills had told me he used in his classes, right? So I thought, oh, okay, well, let me go see if they have any left, right? Again, I didn't know who Sidney Banks was. I think I was starting to I don't even know if I was hearing his name in the community yet or not, but so I did. I just kind of went over and asked if they had any left, because it had been 9 months since Dr. Mills had left, and I didn't know. And the classes hadn't continued because he was the only one teaching them. So I asked if they had any tapes by Sidney Banks or from that class. I may have asked about the class. I can't remember, but and so they went in the back, and they had a couple left, and they said, oh, we got a couple. And I said, okay, cool. What are they? And one was on consciousness, and the other one was called The Missing Link. And those are those little cassette tapes, right? That we don't even have machines for anymore. And so I said, well, oh, okay, great. The Missing Link. Cool. Now you have to, when you're on the verge of finding what you're looking for, you still are in the unknown, but you're feeling drawn. Again, I was feeling drawn, and that greater intelligence somehow wanted me to get my doctorate, as far as I could tell. And a part of me obviously wanted that. So anyhow, I got the tape, took it home, and put it on the cassette tape recorder, and And about 5 minutes into that tape, I was like, that's it. He is talking about what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and I couldn't, put it in words, right? But I knew without a shadow of a doubt that was the answer that I was looking for. That was the missing link, what Sid was talking about.
Mm.
And I just, I heard some things like everything is one. I remember that the past doesn't exist, which really, I mean, psychology has been and continues to be so tied up in this misunderstanding that the past has power versus our thoughts in the moment having the power to determine our experience, right? And so, I just continued to, from that point on, that was all I was interested in.
Thank you so much for that, Rita. He's quieter now in the background. And I really love the fact that sometimes there is, using what just happened right now, sometimes that there is some sort of background noise going in the back of
Mm-hmm.
our mind, but still wisdom still guide us to what we're looking for. And
Mm-hmm.
that is really, really interesting. And one of the things that I would love if you could expand further is when you were doing the juvenile delinquency work before
Mm-hmm.
coming across this understanding, and then you saw something different. Did you ever got back to doing that sort of work, or you just evolved from there, dealing with the young people?
I've always had a certain heart for teenagers. I think
Mm.
there's something about I was a junior high music teacher, right? And some people, when you say junior high teacher of any sort, they're like, "Oh no!"
That's quite interesting. I love school and I love my teachers, most of them. So yeah, I had a good time. I had a pretty good time.
Well, junior high is such a transition period,
Mm.
for young people.
Mm.
Kind of as I see it, going from that kind of more dependent and kind of under their parents' guidance, and then beginning to find their own mind about things in a way. And so it's kind of an exploration, and sometimes goes against the family beliefs and thoughts, and just a real uh, you never know what's going to come out of them. I like
Mm.
that. I like that in life, the spontaneity of what's going to happen next, and how, as let's say, as the counselor facilitator, trusting. And again, this comes back to that inside out foundation, right? Trusting that whatever comes out, something will occur to me if it needs to, right?
Mm.
And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if what occurs to me doesn't work, then there's the next shot at it. But I think it's that fundamental. Like I said, once I began to realize that I had come across what I would call the truth, okay,
Mm.
of how life works from the inside out, and that was my foundation. I never doubted that what I was hearing from Sid was the truth before life and after life.
Mm.
Okay. And that never once in 40 years have I doubted that what I was hearing what I was getting some sense of, getting more insight into, was truth, right? And, my doubts came more along my ability to convey that. Okay. And right now I'm kind of been reflecting on doing a webinar on beyond self-doubt, because I know that experience well. Both sides of it. And so, yeah. What was your question again?
No, what I thought when you said making a webinar about beyond self-doubt, I thought, oh, please let me know. I would love to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Because I also have it. There are certain aspects of my life where I'm very confident, and it just comes naturally. And
Mhm.
certain other areas of my life where I've got doubts, or even depends where I'm at the moment, on that moment. So yes, absolutely, I would love to sign up for that webinar
Yeah.
and learn
Yeah, me
more.
too.
Me too. So
Yeah.
there you are. It's two already. Fabulous. And
Yeah.
one of the things you said that really struck me is in terms of, okay, so there are several techniques out there, and all from the spirit of attempting to help people. And I remember that a friend of mine told me that everyone is doing the best they can at their current level of understanding,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's one of the reasons why I keep doing the womanhood from the Inside Out series, is because number one, I want to bring women who have been touched by by this understanding, and how their lives
Mhm.
has changed, and mostly because usually unknown to us, once we start seeing this from this understanding without trying, we impact our families, our communities, and so on. There is that ripple effect. So that is
Yeah.
why I became really curious. Number one, because I got personally impacted by this
Mhm.
understanding, and so I started looking more into this direction. But at first, I thought that I came across something intellectual. I thought, oh, this is really cool idea. Is this so like positive thinking? And I thought at first I thought
Mhm.
it was, but then it was
Mhm.
like, oh no, it's beyond. It's before positive thinking. It's before
Mhm.
everything else.
Yeah. 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 I know it's our intellectual mind, our ego mind.
Mm,
Same thing, different names, but same thing. Okay. Uh, it's built to put things in boxes, concepts,
mhm,
beliefs. Okay. Again, not right or wrong. Very valuable in many ways, right? But that idea, uh, just like you're saying, like that there's a right or wrong way to think, right? There's a positive or a negative way to think, and one's good and one's not good, right? Uh, really seeing how um, mind, thought, and consciousness give us the experience of the way we're thinking moment to moment, is a neutral, it's a neutrality of understanding. Okay. So it's true, if I have an angry thought, I'm going to feel anger, because thought and feeling are the same thing. Okay. One gives me my reason for being angry, you might say, that person's behavior. Okay. But the experience of that thought, consciousness, gives me the experience. I'm going to feel my thinking. I'm going to feel anger. I couldn't feel anything else as long as that's the way I'm thinking about something or someone. Right?
mhm,
But it is moment to moment. I think that early on, that really I felt saved many times, that every moment was a second chance.
mm,
Every moment was a second chance to have a different thought, to have a different view, insight, right? And the more insightful understanding that we are living in the world of our own mind and thought, moment to moment to moment to moment, as is, it's a universal truth. Everybody is, okay, whether we realize it or not, or see it or not, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's going on in my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so at any moment, if I am believing that there's some power outside my own mind and thought that's determining my feeling, my experience, it's going to seem real as long as I have that thought, as long as I have that belief, okay?
Mm.
And as human beings, we picked up a lot of that kind of belief thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? What people sometimes call outside in thinking, okay? And my experience is as we look in the direction of what you might call the spiritual nature of our experience as psychological, okay? Mind, thought, and consciousness give us a psychological experience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the spiritual intelligence of mind, thought, and consciousness is also the spiritual intelligence of psychological experience.
Mm.
It's not an either or separation, it's all one thing, okay? And so moment to moment, we automatically get the experience of the way we're thinking, right? Like, for instance, what just happened. My husband's in the background.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't realize that we can hear him talking
Mm-hmm.
on the phone to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he's just doing his thing. You know, we live in separate realities. He knows I'm on this call. But he thinks, oh, good time to call somebody. Now, again, what you made of it, what I made of it, was basically no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, but it's kind of, could interfere with the sound here. So let's pause, let's let him know, and which is no big deal to him either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now he's back on it again. He's forgotten. I can hear him talking.
And I love it. I love it. I'm so glad you brought your husband to the conversation because he's contributing to the episode as well, right?
Yeah, well,
Because
it's how life is, isn't it?
it is. That's
Yeah,
life. That's life. And is the in the terms of the living in separate realities. And um,
yeah.
what I'm about to say. So all that seems in society, what we read in the papers, magazines, internet, you name it, is all about what we are always led to believe that the way we are feeling is someone else's responsibility.
Yeah.
He made me mad. So and so arrived late. Of course, I'm angry. They are disrespecting my time. And the reason why I'm using those
Mhm.
examples is because I used to feel really triggered by that. It was like
Yeah.
if I said, if we agreed, I agree with someone, let's meet at half past 8, and they arrived late or didn't call on someone, that was a personal offense. It was like, you're wasting my time. I could be doing something else. Why you didn't call? Blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that tiny event that happened in a moment. The person didn't arrive the time that we agreed. Then
Mhm.
build up into something else. So when I started to look into this direction, and in relationships, it may come up a lot in terms that we don't realize
Mhm.
it when we don't have this understanding, and sometimes we forget that we do live in separate
Absolutely.
realities. We do
Oh,
live
yeah.
in, because we are all having our own psychological experience in a moment. So when I oh, that's a funny one. I forgot what I was about to say. This is life as well.
Yeah. Right. It's
And it
catchy. It's catchy.
Yes, and it shows the fleeting nature of thought.
Mhm.
Really, that this is
Oh,
an example of the fleeting
yeah.
fleeting nature of thought. In one moment, I'm in the bandwagon, I'm really feeling it, and then all of a sudden, I forget what I'm about to say, and that's it.
Yep.
So I've lost my train, and that's life.
Yeah. Yeah. It highlights how moment to moment, you could say, mind, thought, and consciousness. Thought is in motion, moment to moment, it's passing through our mind. Now, one of the things that happens for us is that when a thought comes to our mind, we're experiencing it, all right? That's a given. It's a one-to-one relationship. Okay, we become conscious of it, all right? And then, you know, it looks like it's not coming from us, this experience, this feeling.
Mm.
It's coming from who or what we're thinking about. It could be something in our past. It could be something in our circumstance right now, or something we're thinking about in the future, right? It doesn't really matter in a way what the content is. It's the way we're thinking about it. Okay, that's what we experience. And so as long as it looks like it's happening to us, you might say, right? We tend to think about it more. Okay, and that's in the field of psychology, that very innocently, okay, being caught in that same misunderstanding that past is somehow determine who we are and what's possible for us, and the circumstance are somehow determining our experience now, and what might happen in the future could have some effect on that, our experience now, right? We've been encouraged to analyze that, to problem solve it, okay, to try to figure it out some way via the details or the memories that we have. Okay. Now, remember, the past doesn't exist, and neither does the future, right? So what we have is our thought in the moment, right?
Can I just interrupt you there? In terms when you say the past does not exist, what do you mean? Because things did happen.
That's right. That's right. Right. What we have now, because we're always moment in the now. We're experience is being created from within in the now. Okay. And that's something more than just the present moment. Okay. So the past did exist. Yeah. There's absolutely no denial in that. What we experienced then was the best we saw and could at the time, right? So again, no judgment in that, right? What gets carried through time is thought. Our memories are thought. The memories, but it's more what we make of those memories now. Okay, oh, that was really bad. That's damaged me for life. We make something of our experiences in life. Okay, but we do that in thought. Okay, so right now I'm going to experience the way I'm thinking about the past. The past doesn't decide that. It's coming from my own mind and thought right now. Okay, and I've seen this with different people. In the past, I've worked with people in recovery and in different settings, and so many people who are in recovery or have had addiction problems of some sort. It's their the things that happen to them in their life that they just have never gotten over in a way. Right? And the drugs or the alcohol or whatever, the sex or whatever it is, is somehow their way to shift their experience, which we know it can temporarily change how we feel, right? But until there's some shift in understanding that what I'm carrying is my own memories, my own thoughts about the past, then we just keep repeating the same patterns, right? When we begin to realize that it's thought, and thought is, mind, thought, and consciousness are a trinity of spiritual source, you might say, for human experience, moment to moment to moment. And this is the consciousness of our soul. We know this somewhere inside of us, okay? And innocently, again, that's what you could call human or psychological innocence. We have learned to believe that there's something outside of us, our mind, our thought, that has some power to determine our experience right now. Okay. Now, our mind, as I see it, when it really realizes that there's not a power, there's no power other than mind, thought, and consciousness going on in life, period. Everything that's being created of any level of love or hate is all being created via mind, thought, and consciousness.
I love that example. And the word that really jumped at me, it was the word love. Because I remember when I was a teenager and my younger sister was born, and I went to the hospital to meet her for the first time, and I looked into her beautiful gray eyes for the first time, and I felt that experience, that rush of love. And I used to tell people that my heart was hijacked, and I was in that spell. It's almost like she cast a spell on me. So I was in that spell of love for years. It kind of like phased out a little bit when she turned 5 to 6. But I used to think that love came from my sister. It was because I met her. I was like, and all that experience of love had to do with my sister. And very recently I realized, I was like, oh no, I was feeling my thinking in the moment. I still love my sister, and
Yes, absolutely.
it had nothing to do with her in the same way and that blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it frees you, doesn't it? It frees you from, number one, having to live next door to your sister. Whatever. I mean, that's how when we're caught in that idea that there's some outside power, determine our experience, okay, then we work on how to manage that or control it or get away from it, or whereas when we realize insightfully, and this is not an intellectual understanding, that like it was beautiful what you said about, I thought it was positive thinking, which is an intellectual idea about it. It's true that our mind, as we understand how it's working from the inside out, we get more free of what's not true. Our mind won't hang on to those beliefs. Doesn't mean those thoughts won't ever come back again, but they just drop away, they fall away, they fade when it's not true, and we stop caring whether we lose sight and get caught in that thinking again. It doesn't matter. It's the thoughts come and go more quickly because we see them for what they are. We still experience them. I still get upset or frustrated or stressed or worried, right? Every human being. But there's this kind of, oh well, I'm going to be working on it, okay, intellectually, whatever it is I think is causing this feeling, until I realize, well, wait a minute, where's the feeling coming from? It's all such like a dance. It's not just kind of, for me, I'm just kind of, oh, okay. Well, now it's like I'm going you might say inside. Again, all of this is kind of a way to talk about something that words are pointing toward, you know.
Mm.
So I'm coming back to that, knowing that this is temporary.
Mm.
And if I really see it pretty deeply, it's just going to fall off my mind, that thought, or my mind won't hang on to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when that happens, our mind, okay, is built to just quiet down. Then it's like home base is a quieter mind. We're born into that,
Mm.
right? And so it's like I'm not trying to get a quieter mind. It starts to happen more naturally, if you want to put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because I just have less thinking that's saying there's something going on that's has power over my experience in the moment. My husband today, he swims in the ocean every morning, pretty much, right?
Mm.
And so today, and he's out there swimming or he's biking, and he'll have insights. So this morning he comes back from swimming, and he says, "I just realized if it doesn't matter, see if I can put it in word. If it doesn't matter to me, if it's not in my thinking that something matters, it can't matter." Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like all these things that we have going on in life, and there's a lot of stuff going on in life, our personal lives and what's going on in the world right now. But if it's not on our mind, it's not in our experience.
Mm-hmm.
We don't experience it. And it's not right or wrong that we do or don't, right? And we were kind of laughing, and I said, well, again, this is just me saying this, but the 70s, 60s and 70s, I lived in Eugene, Oregon, which was between Eugene, Oregon and San Francisco, the two capitals of hippiedom. The flower children, right?
I can see that.
Yeah. And we were just laughing about how when you try to take even that, like for him, that was a little deeper insight.
Mm-hmm.
That he says, like, there's a lot of stuff I don't have to think about. And it's all like he could see, right? And I said, but as you look at a lot of that philosophy during the hippie time, okay,
Mm-hmm.
where, well, nothing matters, it was more applying an idea
Mm-hmm.
to life with blinders, okay? Because as I see it, when we realize if it's not on my mind, it's not in my experience, that frees my mind to be more present, see things with more clarity, because that's built into us, okay? To have the common sense I need for whatever's going on in my life. I don't have to worry about those things. That's the difference. If it matters to me a lot, then the worry seems justified.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if I see it's a little more neutral. It's this, we need to take care of the yard. We need to pay the bills. We need to finish our plans for the trip. Okay. All of those things unfold. Life is unfolding, kind of coming back circle here. Life is unfolding from the inside out of each of us through our own mind, thought, and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And it is moment to moment, even though it may look like it's something else. It can only appear that way by a thought in the moment.
And I'm so glad you said that, because a question that occurs to me that someone in our audience may have, I say, okay, I would love to have a quieter mind. I do yoga, meditation, mindfulness. So how do I go about quietening my mind? And you just said it. It was like it unfolds.
Hmm.
So what I heard is like it's not a doing. It,
Right. Yeah. A quick example. I
mhm,
saw a client a few weeks ago. Right. So a young woman who has two children uh, in their teens, preteens, teens, and she and her husband are going through a divorce. And she came to me after they made this decision. They were in the middle of these things, and she's having to re-enter the workforce after 13 years of not
mhm,
working. Okay, and has a lot of insecurities, a lot of anxiety, right? Having to decide whether she wants the house or if she's going to get her own place. Just lots of the details that have to be decided about when people separate their lives to whatever degree. And anyhow, so I was asking her, I hadn't seen her in a couple of weeks. I said, so how you doing? How's it been going? And she said, oh, I'm just really anxious. And, I had to meet with my lawyer and I don't know where I'm going to move. And, she was kind of going over all these different things. And I'm listening. And then she says, but, on the days that I can meditate and do yoga, I feel very peaceful. Now, this is, it looks to her, okay, and again, nothing wrong with meditation or yoga. Nothing wrong at all with that. As I'm listening, okay, I realize that it looks to her like her quieter mind is somehow attached to doing some practices, right? And so as we progressed in our conversation that day, uh, we started to talk about, like, in truth, a quiet mind is a thought away, if you want to put it that way. Okay. Meditation, a meditative state of mind is not a practice, it's a state of being. Sid said that a long time ago. Okay. And as we understand more insightfully that we're living moment to moment from the inside out, that we're experiencing thought the way we're thinking in the moment, okay, this power and consciousness bringing it to life for us, that power, right? Our mind lets go more and more of what's not true, that these decisions, these things going on are making me feel the way I do, or what's not needed in this moment. Okay. Now, what was cool about her is that she's listening and she begins to realize that that nice feeling that she was able to get into through practices, again, was there all along. Okay. And that the possibility, is that because for her, with going through all these things she's going through, looking for a job now, the kids, she was like, oh, I don't have time to meditate or do yoga. I don't have the time I need, right? Well, she began to see that the experience of a quieter mind, so to speak, is 100% there all the time. It's like home. We're always at home. Sometimes we just turn the TV on too loud in our head and get caught up in the story, right? Get caught up in the story. And so it was, that began to open a world to her, that she could be not knowing what to do and be more at peace, and knowing she would know what to do when she knew when it came to her. So it was, it's kind of a certain amount of her misunderstanding, her idea that all these things that she was having to deal with, which she is having to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
was keeping her from being calmer, having more peace of mind, having more clarity, finding the common sense, the wisdom she needed, which is always going to come with a better feeling. It comes through thought, but it's there, it's guiding us, it's showing us, so to speak. And so, it's such an innocent, misunderstanding that we get caught in, that there's something to do, and we'll do whatever we do, but it's the understanding more insightful of the source, the inside out, moment to moment, spiritual source of our experience that just keeps waking us up and freeing us and pointing it out to us when we're caught up more quickly, and yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, Rita. Thank you so much. I love that example. And I feel we're coming towards the end of the show for today. So
Yes.
how can people reach you? What is the easiest way for people to get in contact with you?
Well, there's two ways. The quickest way is probably through my email, which would be rjshuford@gmail.com. Okay. I'm not a big Facebook person, so I, I wouldn't count on that. I do have a Facebook page, and I've learned how to use Messenger a little bit and those things. But also my website, which is 3principleshawaii.com. There's information on there, about my services and how to reach me and that kind of thing. And there's also a clip on there now of the last webinar I did, which was Wisdom of the Soul with Kay Taylor and Steph Wilson, these are the two women. I'm also going to do a retreat in Scotland, June 30th, July 1st and 2nd, 3rd, in this year. And we'll be in London from June 21st to the 26th, leave on the 26th. And yeah, so my husband and I are going to Europe for a month. And we'll be in Italy for a couple of weeks, it looks like. And yeah, so we're just very much looking forward to it, and hope to see some of you guys in England and Scotland and Italy. If people are in Italy.
Wow.
Lake Como. We'll be in Lake Como the first week of July. So
oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. I haven't been to Italy yet this year, so yeah, that sounds fabulous. For people who would like to get in contact, you can either go directly to my website, so that would be www.clesiamendes.com, and I'll spell it for you, www.clesiamendes.com. Or if you prefer, you can find me on Facebook, so that would be facebook.com/Clésia.Mendes. Now, Rita, what would be your parting thoughts for our audience today?
My parting thoughts would be: relax, enjoy life, live it your way, listen to your own voice and wisdom, and follow that. Stay open to learning, and I would definitely say go back to Sydney Banks' works, whether it's on tape or book. This ordinary welder had what I'd call an enlightenment experience. It's not about him personally, but it's the depth of what he realized that he has shared with the world. And so I'd say, enjoy life, make the best of it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. For our audience, thank you very much for being with us today. Remember to return to the channel next week for a new episode of Womanhood from the Inside Out and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. See you soon, Rita. Bye.